If I'm being honest, I never liked overnight shifts, but last Wednesday was supposed to be a favor. Covering for a coworker at a self-serve storage facility on the edge of town. Just one night, $20 an hour, and all I had to do was keep an eye on the monitors and let in the occasional late customer. No one told me the place felt different after midnight, or maybe I just never noticed it before. Either way, the weirdness started before my first cup of coffee had even cooled. I got there around 10:30 p.m., stepping out of my car into the kind of silence that makes you pause and check behind you, just in case. The building sits at the end of a deserted frontage road, surrounded by empty lots and a thin patch of woods. The security lights flickered overhead, turning the wet pavement into a patchwork of orange shadows. I tried to brush off the uneasy feeling as nerves. I've never been superstitious, just not built for quiet places. Inside, the office was too clean and too cold, smelling strongly of lemon and something faintly metallic. I busied myself by double-checking the shift log and scanning the rows of glowing monitors on the wall. Each camera showed the same thing: metal roll-up doors, wire fencing, a few customers' padlocks gleaming under the lights. A strip of cheap carpet muffled my footsteps as I paced a little, glancing at the red digital clock every few minutes, waiting for the hours to start melting away. Around midnight, the wind picked up. I could hear it whistling through the tiny gap beneath the door. That's when I noticed something odd on camera 4, a storage unit near the far end of the lot, one of the older sections. The overhead light there kept blinking out and then flaring back on. Nothing dramatic, but it pulled my attention. I figured it was just a loose bulb. Still, I couldn't shake the weird feeling that the shadows around that unit looked wrong somehow. They seemed to creep further out, each time the light flickered, as if the darkness itself was trying to spill into the lit parts. I told myself I was just bored, that my mind was filling in blanks because I'd been staring at screens too long. I made a pot of coffee, sat back in the creaky office chair, and tried to read. But every few minutes, my eyes drifted back to that feed. The broken light, the way the camera seemed a little hazier than the others. I even tried adjusting it from the console, but nothing changed. Just after 1, I heard a soft scraping noise, like something metal being dragged a short distance. Kind of sound that, if you were home alone, would make you mute the TV and listen hard. It was so faint I wasn't sure at first if I had imagined it. I muted the monitors and strained to hear. There it was again, a slow, deliberate scrape, followed by a brief, sharp tap. The sound seemed to come from outside, maybe from one of the units near where the camera was acting up. Hoping to put my nerves to rest, I grabbed the heavy flashlight and keyed open the office door. The night air was damp and smelled faintly of ozone and cold dust. My breath came out in little clouds. I walked past the rows of identical metal doors, the gravel crunching quietly under my shoes, and let the beam of my flashlight sweep over the units. Nothing. No open doors, no sign of movement. Just that broken light, flickering like a dying firefly at the far corner. I almost laughed at myself, thinking this was what happened when you watch too many scary movies as a kid. I was just about to head back when a sudden gust of wind slammed one of the storage doors shut behind me. A sharp, echoing bang that felt much too loud for the ghee. Our mentee. My skin prickled all over. For a second, I just stood there, flashlight shaking in my grip, heart thumping so hard it almost drowned out the ringing in my ears. I told myself it was just the wind. It had to be. But as I started walking back toward the office, hugging the flashlight tighter, I kept catching little sounds, rustling, soft and quick, like footsteps scuffling in gravel just out of sight. When I reached the door, I half expected it to be locked or stuck, but it opened with the same stiff creak as before. Inside, the office felt different, colder somehow, and the lemon scent had faded beneath a sharper, almost metallic tang. I glanced at the monitors, and my stomach twisted. Camera 4, where the broken light was now showing only static, gray fuzz churning across the screen. The other cameras were fine, the rows of storage units perfectly still, but that one feed was dead. I tried toggling through the feeds, hoping it was just a glitch, but nothing changed. After a minute, I gave up and checked the shift log for the maintenance number. No way was I going back outside again unless I had to. I stared at the static, rubbing the condensation off my coffee cup, trying to convince myself that cameras break all the time. But I kept thinking about the way the shadows had crept out along the pavement, the strange sound, the sense, irrational but impossible to shake, that something had been watching from that corner. Then, just as I was starting to settle, there was a low thump from somewhere down the main hallway. Not a crash, but a solid, deliberate sound, like someone dropping a heavy box just out of view. I jumped up, spilling coffee all over the desk, and swore under my breath. The thump was followed by a dragging noise, muffled but unmistakable, something scraping along the thin carpet outside the office. I pressed my ear to the door, holding my breath. The sound stopped. The silence that followed was so complete, it made my ears ring. I waited, every muscle tense, until I couldn't stand it anymore, and cracked the door open a few inches. The hallway was empty, lit by the buzzing fluorescent overhead. No sign of movement, nothing out of place, except for a thin, dark smear on the carpet leading away from the office door, like someone had dragged a wet mop or a dirty boot. I told myself it was probably just dirt. Maybe a customer had tracked something in earlier, and I hadn't noticed. But as I watched, the shadows in the corners of the hallway seemed to shiver, almost as if the light was bending away from them. I shut the door again, this time locking it, and tried to steady my breathing. I sat facing the monitors, the office too quiet, my own reflection ghostly in the window. I started to picture things in the static, faces, flickers of movement that vanished when I blinked. The next moment of calm was broken when the phone on the desk rang, sharp and sudden. I jumped, nearly knocking over the monitor in my scramble to answer. But when I picked up, there was only silence on the other end. I said hello twice, my voice sounding thin and uncertain. Still nothing. Then, just as I was about to hang up, I heard faint breathing, too soft to be sure, almost blending with the hiss of static from the broken camera. After a few seconds, the line went dead. I sat for a long minute, phone in my lap, listening to the hum of the lights and the soft tick of the clock. I considered calling my manager, or even the police, but what would I say? That a camera was out, and I thought I heard a weird noise? I'd sound ridiculous. I told myself I was still in control. So I wiped up the spilled coffee, turned off the ringer, and forced myself to focus on the shift log. I tried to write down everything that had happened, just to organize my thoughts. My handwriting looked shaky, almost like someone else had written it. Every so often, I would glance up at the remaining monitors, half expecting to see something moving where it shouldn't be. But the screens showed only the usual, corrugated metal, lumpy darkness, the occasional moth flickering past the lens. Except, on camera sec, I noticed the office window, my own reflection barely visible in the glare. I stared at that faint shape for a moment, then looked at the real window beside me. The glass was black, reflecting the office light back at me. But I thought, just for a second, I saw a shape move behind me. I spun around, heart hammering, but there was no one else in the room. I tried to laugh it off, but the sound barely made it out of my throat. I rubbed my arms, feeling the chill in the air deepening, the kind that sinks into your bones. The metallic smell was stronger now, mixed with something faintly sweet and rotten, like old fruit left too long in a drawer. I checked the clock again. It was only 2:30 a.m. The next hour felt like it stretched out forever. I kept telling myself that nothing real had happened, nothing that couldn't be explained. Bad wiring, wind, nerves. Just when I started to believe it, I heard the elevator at the end of the hallway clanked to life. It's an old lift. Most customers barely use it, but staff keep it running for maintenance. I hadn't seen anyone come in on the gate camera. The monitor showed the exterior gate was still locked and the lot empty, but I heard the elevator's groan, the shudder as it rose up to my floor. Then it stopped, settling with a dull thunk, and the doors slid open with a metallic screech. I froze, keys in hand. My mind raced. Maybe someone had slipped in earlier, hiding out after hours. Maybe a homeless person, or someone up to no good. Every instinct told me to stay put and wait for morning, but I forced myself to move. I unlocked the office door and peered out, clutching the flashlight like a weapon. The hallway was empty, except for that dark smear on the carpet, now wider, stretching all the way to the elevator. The lift door stood open, but the inside looked impossibly dark, as if the light inside had been sucked away. My skin crawled. I took a step forward, meaning to call out, but my voice caught in my throat. The only sound was the soft, rhythmic ticking of something metallic against the elevator rail, like a coin spinning down and down. I told myself I would just check, just look inside and then lock myself in the office until sunrise. As I approached, the scent hit me, a mix of cold iron and that overripe sweetness, so strong I had to cover my nose. The flashlight beam cut a pale tunnel through the darkness, illuminating the interior of the elevator. It was empty. Or, it looked empty, except for the dark stain pooled in the center, spreading slowly over the linoleum floor. I stepped closer, heart jackhammering, and shined the light down. There were no footprints leading in or out. Nothing to explain the sound. Then, from behind me, I heard the unmistakable click of a storage unit door unlatching. The noise echoed down the corridor, impossibly loud. I spun around, flashlight shaking, and saw that the unit closest to the elevator, one that should have been locked and vacant, was now slightly ajar. Just enough for a sliver of darkness to push out, thick and oily, as if the shadows themselves were leaking in too.